pull back 3 fingers so you're making the sign of a gun. Touch the tip of your first finger to your thumb so you have a circle. There you go. Look at your circle. Look at my circle. Put it right on your chin and freeze. And look how few of you know where your chin is. Are you guys to show me exactly what I needed to see? And that is we're going to have an awesome time. So give yourselves a great big hand. You'll be glad to know that has nothing to do with your intelligence. Everybody say, phew. Nor did I do it to make fun of you, although you guys were pretty funny. I did it to illustrate a point, and that is that we all have a way of seeing things that's more or less automatic. You know what I mean? We kind of see things the same way we always see things, and it limits our options in life. Sometimes we react the same way in certain situations. You know what I'm talking about? It's very common. So one of the things that didn't come up in my introduction is that I was the official hypnotist for MTV Spring Break. It's a dirty job that somebody's got to do. And I was in Jamaica speaking and doing a hypnosis show for about like 2,500 semi-inebriated college students. And I use the word semi very loosely. And I had them doing all the things. Have any of you seen a hypnosis show? I'm going to do one for you tomorrow night. Yep. So I had them milking a cow, and I had them conducting an orchestra. I had one guy think he's pregnant. Another guy think he's the father. And in the midst of this, I decide I'm going to try something new. So I take one of my subjects and I say, when you wake up, 3 things are going to happen. I said, number 1, you don't believe you're hypnotized, even though you are. I said, number 2, this is the worst show you've ever seen and you're aggravated with me. And I said, number 3, there's an invisible wall 3 feet in front of you. And then I wake everybody up. Now realize, I've never done this before. Complete experiment. So I wake everybody up. I say, how's everybody doing? And this one guy screams, you suck! I said, G-rated show, dude. He says, the show's terrible. I said, well, then leave. The guy gets up, he goes, he starts to push, he finally sits back down, crosses his arms, and he starts to pout. So what's the problem? He goes, nothing. I said, are you hypnotized? He says, no. I said, are you having fun? He says, no. I said, well, then why don't you leave? And the guy thinks for a minute, he goes, I'm not going to give you the satisfaction. And I realized something really important in that moment. I thought that's all of us, right? We all have a hope, a dream, a desire, a goal. We're all motivated in some way to achieve something. You all have it in your head, who you want to be, how you want to show up in the world, and that's so important. And yet we start moving towards it, and then we hit our invisible walls. And they stop us, right? And where are those walls? In your own head, right? So they're not existing outside of yourself, and therefore, pushing harder on that wall doesn't get you any further, does it? And how many of you had that experience? You just try to apply more effort. You become obsessive trying to accomplish something that's not working for you. And when that happens, and when you find yourself in that place, you know what you need to do? You need to stop. You need to stop. You need to just stop, back off. You need to do what he needed to do in order to break through that wall. What he needed to do, he needed to wake up, right? What about the rest of us? Isn't it possible that we're all just a little bit hypnotized? Kind of sleepwalking through life, programmed, half asleep, and therefore not getting the same results we want. So what we want to do is to really pump up our awakened state. Being really, really alert, really, really awake. And when we're not, here's what I mean about that. How many of you guys have ever, I don't know, looked for your cell phone while you're talking on your cell phone? Have you had that experience, right? Or you ever drive home, you get there, you don't know how you got there? Right? We spend a lot of our time in a trance, we really do. And so being awake means not being in that trance, being able to make specific, clear decisions about how you're going to be in any one given situation. And we're not awake. I'll tell you my own story about that. A friend of mine bought an airplane, a little Cessna fixer-upper, hole in the wall, hole in the sky you pour money into. Right? And he invites me on his maiden voyage, and I said, sure, why not? I've lived long enough. So I said, yes. So we drive out to the airport. There's one of these airports. It's not a high-security airport. There's like a 6-foot fence, and there's a gate that you drive through, so it's only accessible to pilots and anybody under 90 with legs. And so he says, get out of the car, unwrap the chain, open up the gate, I'll drive through, you close the gate, come on, and we'll drive out to the plane. So we drive up to the airport, I get out of the car, I take the key, I put it in the padlock, I unlock the chain, I open up the gate, Larry drives through. I close the gate back up again, I rewrap the chain, I put the lock on, and I see Larry looking at me like this out of the car window. He's like, I said, what? What's the matter? He keeps looking at me like that. I said, what? Is my fly open? What's the problem? He says, dude, how are you going to get back to the car? And I realize I've locked myself on the outside of the gate. Right? I tell you that story because my therapist told me to. No. I don't feel any better. Now, I tell it to you because we're all smart, but we're not always all there. So I'm going to encourage you today to really examine yourself. Be curious about your own mindset. Be curious when you find yourself getting stopped, when you find yourself getting afraid, when you find yourself getting frustrated or irritated, because most of the obstacles we face are right here in our mind. So we want to learn how to wake up. Simply wake up. Right? A few great ways to do that. Of course, I teach people to meditate. It's really important to learn to quiet your mind. How many people here meditate or have some form of quieting your mind? Very important. You learn it. And once you know how to use it, it works in the trenches, right? It works in your real life. So you get to go out into the world, show up at work, bring your meditation practice with you to work, right? What else helps you wake up? Sex. Don't bring that to work. Right? And wonder, the power of wonder. Start seeing life through the eyes of a child. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing to be able to do. And really, in doing that, you'll start to see opportunities that you may be missing. And we call that waking up from hypnosis, right? Being awake. So, as we go through today, you hear a lot of speakers telling their stories of personal power, responsibility, the willingness to push through difficult times. We all have them, right? Sometimes we hear those stories, and I myself walk into rooms like this, and sometimes I feel so elated. You ever feel like you get pumped up? How many of you are pumped up right now? Okay, cool. Now, how many of you aren't that pumped? Now, don't tell me, but okay. The reality is sometimes we want to be excited, we want to be enthusiastic, we want to be pumped up, but we're kind of chill, or maybe we're on our heads, or we're a little negative. Just realize that that's okay too. It's okay, just be real, be with yourself, let yourself feel what you feel, be present to yourself, because when you become present to yourself, then those walls begin to fall of their own accord. And sometimes it happens far more quickly than we realize. So what I wanted to do is I want to tell you one more story. And what I believe that it illustrates is that often when we're making this effort to go out into the world and be more successful, and we hit our walls, we think that it's going to take forever to get through them. Anybody here get frustrated? I keep trying. When is my ship ever going to come in? And often it happens just like that. But until it happens just like that, it's a long slog. And we want to stay inspired, motivated, and optimistic as we start moving in that direction. So I don't know if it came up in my introduction, but I used to be a chiropractor. Yeah, I was a chiropractor. I had the largest sports medicine practice in the state of Vermont. Really cool. But the story I'm about to tell you was my very first patient, right out of chiropractic school. I'm wearing the white coat. I look like a doctor, but I don't feel like a doctor. I got the stethoscope. People say, Dr. Taubman. I look around for my father. It's like weird. It's so very strange. So, first patient walks in. Let me describe her to you. Her name is Beth. 14 years old, 5 foot nothing, dripping with attitude, what we would now call a severely emotionally disturbed adolescent. As if there's any other kind. She walks in, she's been in a car accident, so she walks in stiff as a board like this. She's followed in by her mother, Diane, who has a look on her face that you would only see on the face of the mother of a severely emotionally disturbed adolescent. So I do my examination. I say, Beth, turn your head to the right. She goes like this. Turn your head to the left. Can you turn it any further? I complete my exam. I find out that she's got a condition called a subluxation, which basically means a misaligned bone in her neck. How many of you know what I'm talking about? Pinching a nerve, so she can't move her hand. So I say, Beth, I'm going to go ahead and do something about that. So what I want you to do is I want you to lay down right here, face up. And I'm going to move that bone just a little bit. She says, are you going to hurt me? I say, come on, Beth, it's okay, you'll be fine. She goes, you better not hurt me. I say, Beth, you'll be fine. Of course, inside, I'm like, and I'm Jewish. So I got Beth's head in my hand, face up. Diane is like right where you are. What's your name? Lillian, right where Lillian. Hey, Lillian, good to see you. Okay, so I've got Beth's head in my hand. She's face up. I turn her head a little bit. I go, Beth sits up like a shot. She goes, "You said you weren't going to hurt me, and that hurt." Back here, I said, "Come on, Beth, it wasn't that bad." She goes, "Yes, it was." I said, "You care to tell me that the other way?" She goes, "That really hurt." So my jaw dropped, right? First adjustment. Diane's jaw dropped. Beth was completely unimpressed. But all of a sudden, Diane's face turns white. Now, I'm not looking at Beth, right? I'm behind her. Diane is in front of her, looking at her. Her face turns white. And now I'm a little bit afraid. What does this mean, right? Because I don't know. This is new for me, right? So I decided to come around and see what's going on, to look at Beth. So now I've got to pause a moment and tell you the part of the story that I didn't tell you. Beth had a pre-existing condition, which means something before the accident, called external strabismus. Anybody know what that is, external strabismus? It's a condition where one eye looks one way and the other eye looks the other way. Like the guy from the old Mel Brooks movies, Marty Feldman, thank you, yeah, right? She had that condition from birth. It affected her ability to learn. It affected her social skills. People were abusing her and bullying her, all that, right? Terrible. She had this condition from birth. She had had 4 operations on her eye, where they take out the eyeball, they cut the lateral rectus muscle, they put the eye back in, they patch it, they leave it a month, patch comes off, guess what? No change. Trauma beyond belief. So now back to my story. I come around to look at Beth, and her eyes are dead even. Dead even. First time in her life. I started to cry. Diane started to cry. Beth was completely unimpressed. But I get a call from Diane that night to tell me that Beth sat up that night and read all night long. She went on to become a great student. She went on to graduate school. She now runs a group home for severely emotionally disturbed adolescents. Poetic justice. And, right? And here's the point, right? What's the point? What did it take to change her life? One small adjustment. That was it. Her whole life changed. You never know how close you are to the transformation that you seek that's going to make your life forever improved. I encourage you to enter today and this week with that spirit of optimism, because it can be so sudden, and you never know what you can do, who you can help, and the difference you can make. So I'd like to leave you with a poem that I wrote. Are you guys cool with that? Yeah. Quick poem, okay. How am I doing on time here? Good? Yes?
You got literally less than a minute.
Okay, less than a minute. I'm going to do it really fast. It's a poem that I wrote, and the inspiration, my mom passed away recently. I had 3 childhood heroes. Don Quixote from Man of La Mancha, Harry Houdini, and Dr. Seuss. And I tell you that one because this poem ain't rap, okay? But it's about you, okay? So here's how it goes. It says, when you make a commitment to lead with your heart, it becomes very easy to know where to start. You know not to believe everything on your mind, and what worries you sometimes will change on a dime. And nothing's impossible when you stay the course. Persistence will always be effort and force. Like the great Don Quixote, you live by your quest. Like a phoenix from ashes, you rise o'er the rest. As a leader who's focused on what's here and now, you know what to do to reject or allow. You're powerful, limitless, loving, and so be present and wakeful, be quiet, and know that nothing's impossible for me or for you. So go forth and lead in a way that is true. Do what you love, and the money will follow. And so will the world if your goals aren't hollow. Live from your soul, make magic from strife, and you'll leave a legacy that outlives your life. Have a great day.
Steve Taubman, everybody! That was so awesome. You guys okay with an interview if I ask him a couple of questions? Yes? Awesome. Have a seat. So, this couch is not as comfortable, just so you all know, it's not as comfortable as you think it is. So we have to make it look super comfortable. Thank you so much for pouring into it. And I know that we've known each other for a while, and it's so exciting to see you up here, just literally giving your heart. And I know that a lot of us struggle with, not financial, but mental barriers. What are some of the things that you see with a lot of the clients that you work with, like a common thing that you see, and how do you help them overcome those?
You know, the biggest issue, of course, fear is something that faces all of us, right? We all have that time when we want to go somewhere, and then there's a feeling inside of us. We don't always acknowledge it or identify it as fear. We find all kinds of ways to work around that. There's lots of ways to distract yourself, aren't there? Right? right? I could just get on the internet. I could just do something else instead. I'm definitely going to do this one thing, but first let me file my nails, right? So whenever possible, what you want to do is you want to get really quiet, get really close to yourself, feel what it feels like inside, and you'll find it's often fear, maybe it's anger, maybe it's discouragement. I know for myself, I've struggled with a lifelong issue of anxiety. And so I go up and down with my anxiety, and what I find to be most helpful is learning to quiet my mind, learning to sit, be tolerant to the feelings, and to be wise about the thoughts. Because when you're anxious, your thoughts are anxious. And if you have anxious thoughts, they give you anxious feelings. So you end up cycling yourself deeper and deeper into that feeling. So what you want to do is get very quiet. When things aren't working, as I said before, stop. And above all, don't believe everything you think.
That was awesome.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, that was awesome. I have a lot of fear. Who else has fear in here? Raise your hand. Yeah. No, and so that was super, super helpful. And I always struggle with sitting down by myself. You know what I mean? And I think it's a struggle for a lot of us.
Blaise Pascal said that all the ills in the world stem from man's inability to sit quiet and still in a room alone. We all think that, like just sitting quietly and doing nothing, well, that seems like such an easy thing to do. Why bother? It doesn't do anything. It's the most courageous thing you can do. Stopping, not doing, resisting the urge to jump back into your head and think your way through problems, to literally just be inside of yourself, no matter how uncomfortable it is. That's the way out. The only way out is through. Be with yourself. Have the courage to do it.
I love it. That's so awesome. I'm pumped right now. I'm super pumped. So I'm so excited. So before we kind of came up here, he told me that he really loves the audience, and I mean you guys gave him a really good round of applause. So he's super appreciative of that. So you said that you had a gift for them.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. When we're learning to quiet our minds, when we're learning to calm our thoughts, sometimes it's helpful to have some external process, right? Something else that helps us do it. So when I wrote my most recent book, which is called Buddha in the Trenches, it's about being Buddha-like and calm on the battlefields of life, right? I did an audiobook version of it, and as a bonus for the audiobook, I created a self-guided meditation that basically puts you into a calm, peaceful state when you're in a stressful state. It's cool. It's only 12 minutes long. I've got it available. If anybody wants it, just send me an email, steve@stevetaubman.com. We'll make sure that all of the links are available to you if you forget or don't get a chance to write them down in the back. But steve@stevetaubman.com, and I'm more than happy to send that to you personally with my blessings and love.
Fantastic. You are welcome, everybody. Steve Taubman, you guys, give him another round of applause. All right, so how was that? I didn't lie to you, right? Mind blowing. He had that thing with his hands. Yeah, that was pretty cool. All right, so I'm going to invite Yuri back up to the stage because we're going to bring up our next speaker, which we're super excited about because this guy has a heart of a giant. I mean, the things that he's gone through in his entire life, he is a global speaker, keynote speaker. He's also a communication specialist. And
very special human being. We're so excited.
Yes. Yes. And so, and just so you guys know, he has an amazing accent. So I can't wait to bring him up here and introduce. Gotcha. He told me to say it. Jason Freeman. He told me to say it, but I'm so excited to bring him up here. I love it. And you got an escort? You are the man. I love it. So this is Jason Freeman. Go ahead and share with them your special accent.
Hi, I'm Jason Freeman. I'm originally from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Well, what you're hearing is not a Midwestern accent. No! It's what's called a speech impediment. At least I used to think so.
Yeah, I heard him. I'm like, are you from the Midwest? He's like, yes. All right, you guys. This is going to be an amazing talk. I hope you guys are taking notes. He's super inspirational. I'm so glad that we can call each other friends. You have such a big heart. Thank you so much for speaking into the Habits of Warrior family. Thank you so much.
Let's give it up for Jason Freeman.
Jason Freeman, everybody.
Thank you. Let's get the cat out of the bag right away. For most of my life, my voice, that I shut myself down, that I tried to speak the least amount that I could. Have you ever heard that voice in your head that just keeps picking on you? Like you go to do something and you think you're doing well, but then that voice is like, you didn't do it good enough. Have you ever heard that? Raise your hand if you have. Well, a lot of hands go up. But do we hang out talking about this voice? No, not really. We pretend it doesn't exist. We go on do, everything's fine. But inside, we are hearing this voice all the time. And I don't know why the voice is the way it is for you. I know I didn't start out with it. In fact, when I was born, my umbilical cord became kinked like a garden hose, which makes it difficult for me to say my umbilical cord became kinked like a garden hose. And I lost some oxygen. The technical name of my condition, everyone do air quotes. Condition, yes, is cerebral palsy. And as a result, I have this fine speech impediment and some coordination differences. But my folks started me out right. They said, Jason, you are the best, like so many folks do. We say folks in the Midwest, parents, mom and dad people. But in later grade school, for some reason, that critical voice, which I call the perfectionistic voice, started growing fangs. And this is my imitation of fangs. Everyone do fangs. Yeah. Good fangs. And it started looking around at me like, you're not like the others. Does your perfectionistic voice ever compare to other people? Yes. And so I didn't know I had an option. I kept listening to this voice would say, don't talk. Don't speak your truth. Don't share your good ideas. Don't make friends. Don't. So you know what? I did less and less. And then the voice said, not only, the perfectionistic voice said, not only is your voice not good, but you're not good. You know when your perfectionistic voice doesn't just pick on something you're doing, like a sales call or business decision, but when it goes in for the jugular and says, you're no good, does that feel good? I guess if we're masochists, it might, but any masochists in the room? Don't answer that, don't answer that. And so I kept going down this road and doing less and less. And in 7th grade, It was so long ago, like 2 lifetimes ago. Not literally, but a long time ago. A long time ago. In 7th grade, I attempted to take my own life. Can you imagine just a wee little kid? I wasn't that small, but maybe that small. Just a 7th grader, so burdened by that perfectionistic voice. And was I going after my goals and dreams then? No, I was doing the exact opposite. I was so overwhelmed. So what? But I called for help. And in that moment, the idea of doing my imperfect best, doing my imperfect best was born, even though I didn't have the words at the time. Doing our imperfect best, first and foremost, means that we accept that we have a perfectionistic voice, that we identify it, that we identify it as an opinion and not as all of us. Secondly, doing our imperfect best means that we give the perfectionistic voice space. Now, why give it space? Why give it kindness? Because if we don't know what happens, it just hits back harder. I mean, if we try to cast it out and say, be gone, just let me live my life, it'll just come up with something worse. So, be kind to it and say, I hear your perfectionistic voice, that's an opinion. And then once we recognize it and hear it, we then have power. Because then we can do our imperfect best. And you might be going, imperfect best. Why not just do a perfect best? And yes, that will be your perfectionistic voice saying that. Doing an imperfect best gives us the tools we need to. We still go and do our best to follow through with what we want to do in life, but when we make mistakes or experience imperfections or failures or have accidents, I mean, none of that stuff ever happens. But if it did, doing our imperfect best would give us the capacity to say, oh, isn't that interesting? That didn't go the way I have planned. To say the least. And yes, it's kind of embarrassing, and yes, it's frustrating, and yes, I would have liked life not to have gone that way, but hey, it did. So I'm going to get back up and try again. And why do I say this? Because each of your businesses or each of your careers are so important. And it's going to require you trying and trying and trying again. And taking risks and being creative. And you know what happens when we take risks and we're creative? We increase the likelihood of making mistakes. We increase the likelihood of it not going exactly right. And that's okay. That's what innovation is about. And that's why we're here today. I applaud you for all getting up early, driving through traffic. You all did that because change matters to you. Trying new things matter to you. Meeting new people, getting new ideas, married to you. And so today and tomorrow and the next day, it's a wonderful conference full of so many great things. So the next 3 days, I challenge you to like not out loud. You don't have to go on out loud and say, "Oh, my perfectionistic voice just said I stink." I mean, that would be. We don't have to put our perfectionistic voices on loudspeaker. That would be kind of awkward, and that would be pretty disruptive. Imagine if we all said what our perfectionistic voices say right now. Don't do that. Don't do that. But as you go through this conference, it's a perfect time because you're getting so much new information, and the perfectionistic voice is going, "Yay, it's a party, I can shut all that stuff down, yay!" So identify the perfectionistic voice. And then, next step, we remember to give it space. It wants our safety, it wants to put its 2 cents in. It's not the enemy, just give it space. And then I challenge you to have the courage to go forth and do your imperfect best, and meet that person you're kind of shy to go up to. Or say yes to that idea, the opportunity that comes up. I challenge you, I challenge me. I'm going to be doing this all conference too. Because the perfectionistic voice doesn't take holidays, does it? It's pretty much a 24/7 thing. What I'm talking about, what we have an opportunity to do takes a tremendous amount of courage. It's a lot of people, and I used to be just one by the perfectionistic voice. Heck, I almost took my life over the perfectionistic voice. But to find another way, and step by step, do your imperfect best to create your dreams, to develop those relationships, to step by step, and it takes all we have. So with that, please all stand up. And this is the technical part. Pay close attention. Raise your right hand. Raise your right pointer finger. And say, I have the courage to do my imperfect best. I have the courage to do my imperfect best. I have the courage to do my imperfect best. Cool. Thank you. All sit down. Who you are and what you do is important. It's so important. Have a great conference and go forth and do your imperfect best. Thank you. I suppose. Yeah, I was going to go get a burrito, but I'll answer.
There's burritos everywhere. It's
I
California.
love Mexican food.
Have a seat on the wonderfully comfortable couch.
I sat down before you invited me.
Oh, I did. Oh, so you got to feel it. All right. I'm so excited that you're here because honestly, you poured. Did everybody love that? That was amazing, right? I'm so glad you're here. That was so awesome. So a lot, I mean, with social media nowadays and, you know, everything being like, oh, this is my chapter 20 when they're really on chapter 5, right? And we're stuck behind these screens. How can you help people get over that feeling of like, I guess, incompetency a lot of times and inadequacy? How do you help people do that?
The great question. The thing to realize is there's always, we can always look around on social media or in real life and see the grass is always greener, the Facebook is always greener, the Twitter is always greener. But the greenest thing of all is our lives, our hearts, our passion, and to come again and again and focus on what we can do. I can't get rid of this voice, but I can inspire people across the country. It's what I can do, and each of us can do so much. Each of us have so many capabilities. And yeah, I didn't mean to point at any of you. My mom would be like, don't point.
All of you. I love it. So we all can inspire somebody. We all can do something, right? And I love what you had made mention to, you know, the grass is always greener, right? It's always greener where you water it. So as long as you're pouring into yourself and you're able to pour into other people, it's always going to be green wherever you're at. That is so awesome.
Yeah,
I'm so excited.
Yes, I do have a gift.
I have a tendency to ask the speakers if they have a gift to give to everybody, because I feel like everything, you know, there's so many things that when we leave this room, there's like you have everything outside working against you. And he has an amazing gift that he wants to share with you guys, that he wants to give just to the Habitude Warrior family. And what is that?
So the gift is a PDF where you can create imperfect best goals. You know, so often like we create goals and then we get frustrated a week after because they're not perfect, and then we give up the goals. What about creating goals in the imperfect best way?
I've never heard that before. I heard you speak. The imperfect goals. That is so great. I love it. So you're going to give them a PDF. How do they get that PDF?
It's jasonwfreeman.com/goals.
His name is right here, everybody. Jason, did it go away? It is not there. Okay, jasonwfreeman.com/goals. All right?
Goals with an S on the end of it.
Plural.
Yeah,
goals.
Plural. Yeah, whatever that word is.
Awesome, because we have multiple imperfect goals. Awesome. Thank you so much, Jason. We are so thankful. Jason Freeman, everybody. Let's give him a round of applause. And now, his name on the page, just in case you guys didn't see it before. And now, I have the honor of bringing up a very special man, the founder of Habitude Warrior, Eric Swanson. Everybody, give him a round of applause.
What up? What's going on, man?
Gotta love this guy.
Ashton Harvey, ladies and gentlemen. Give it up for Ashton. You guys having fun or what? How much fun? Seriously. Alright, turn to your neighbor right now. Turn to your neighbor. Good. Turn to your neighbor. No, not that one. The other one. Yeah, the other one. And you guys all felt that. Alright, turn to your other neighbor. No, go back to the other one. And say, hey neighbor. You're pretty cool. Now look at the other neighbor. Look at the other neighbor. What? No, look at me first. Look at me first. Look at me first. When you look at the other neighbor, go like this. Gotcha. Never worked with me. Alright, so. Alright, that was the fun part of the event. The whole next 3 days are going to be very serious. Just kidding. How many of y'all are here for all 3 days? All 3 days. Like on Earth, I mean, like you're here, you're hanging out. How many of y'all are bringing kids to day 3? Junior Habitude Warrior, let me see you raise your hands on that.
Just a few of you. Well, one of you has like 9 kids, that's fine. So, all right. We got some great things coming up, great surprises, great amazing things. So let's reset that clock for a second. So I'm so excited you guys are here, and I always say this at all of our events. It actually, the dream team and the speakers, didn't it seem like we just did this like a week ago? Yeah. Oh yeah, we were in Dallas a week ago. That's right. So I always say this on stage. I say that, look, it's not what happens, here today on the stage. It's what you do with what happens in your mindset and your habits and your attitude. So that's the genesis of Habitude Warrior. So I'm really excited about our next speaker, and I always introduce this wonderful woman the same way, and it is literally the I only introduce her this way and nobody else in the world. And I've introduced many people. Are you all ready? Yeah. Seriously. San Diego, amazing. Ready? Yeah. All right.
Good morning. Good morning. I have a question for you this morning. Have you ever looked at 2 people, any 2 people, it doesn't matter, and wondered to yourself, what the heck happened? What is the difference that made the difference in these 2 lives, such that one of those people will be very successful and the other, not so much? One of these people could be born in the heart of the ghettos of, Bogota, a place I visited recently. And this person can rise to become a PhD in biochemical engineering. This person will marry and raise a beautiful family. This person will enjoy all the fruits of life. And this other person, born in the lap of opportunity, this person is going to trash their entire life. This person will destroy their marriage. They will all but set fire to their business. This person will die, bloated, broke, and alone. So what is the difference that makes the difference in these 2 lives? I offer to you, it's their habitudes. It's the habits and the attitudes that they develop on a daily basis. It's the choices that they make on a daily basis that will impact the trajectory of their lives. So, let me ask you another question. What will you do? Because life happens. Life happens real time. You don't have time to sit and ponder when it happens. So what choice will you make? What will you do? Will you lie? Will you cheat? Maybe slip that ring off and put it in your pocket? Or will you stand up and say, no, that's not the choice. I'm going to do what's right, even if no one's looking. What will you do when it's your turn to make that decision? I have absolutely no idea how the telephone found its way into my hand that day. But it did. I had no intent to call anybody. I called the police. The desk sergeant answered the phone. I said, sir, I need to know what the laws are that constitute child abuse. He said, well, hitting a child so as to leave a mark, not clothing that child, not feeding feeding that child. And there's such a thing as emotional abuse as well. I said, then, sir, I think I need to report what might be child abuse. He said, oh, are you a teacher? Are you a neighbor? I said, no, sir. I'm the child. He said, no way. Absolutely not. That won't happen. You have to be under 18. I said, sir, I'm 14. He said, you're 14? I had this voice at the age of 3. I said, yes, sir. I'm 14. So he asked me some questions, and I described the incident of the night before and my injuries, which included a black eye and a busted lip and a swollen purple wrist that was later determined to have a hairline fracture. And as I finished describing these things, I heard the bell ring at school nearby, summoning me back to class after the lunch break. The policeman asked me for my phone number. I said, sir, I can't give you my number. I just heard the bell ring. I've got to go back to school. I can't be late. I'm going to get into trouble. He said, give me your phone number and don't you move. I complied with his order and I hung up the phone. And I sat in the silence of our living room, just listening to myself breathe in and out. Martin Seligman, a noted psychologist, wrote the book Learned Optimism. This was a chronicle of his 26-year odyssey in studying depression and learned helplessness in human beings. It all started with a box of rats, actually 2 boxes of rats. In one box, there was a bunch of rats, and there was a lever in the box and an electrical charge under the box. And all the rats had to do was push the lever to stop the electrical charge. Even though there was a number of rats in the box, each one of them eventually learned, hit the lever to stop the charge. Hit the lever to stop the charge. They all learned it. In the second box, there was a like set of rats. They also had a charge under their feet. They also had a lever in the box, but the lever didn't work. Nothing they did worked. They ran around in circles. They jumped up and down. Nothing they did stopped the charge under their feet. This group of rats learned that they were helpless and that nothing they did would make a difference. This group of rats eventually just walked in a circle and then sat down in the pain. Flash forward a couple of weeks later, we've got the same 2 groups of rats in a box, but the box is a little different this time. This time there are 2 boxes. The first box has a charge under their feet and a lever, but the lever doesn't work. There's a low barrier and a second box, and all the rats have to do is jump the low barrier into the second box. This first group of rats, the ones that learned to pull the lever and stop the charge, well, they tried for the lever and it didn't stop the charge. But each one of those rats then just jumped over the low barrier into the new box where there was no charge. That's where they found safety. The second group of rats were in an identical box that had a charge under their feet, a lever that didn't work, a low barrier, and another box that they could jump into to safety. None of the rats jumped over that low barrier to safety. All they did was walk around in a circle and sit down in the pain. And at this point, Martin Seligman looked at the rats and he looked at the symptoms they were exhibiting. And he said to himself, that looks like depression in humans. And he asked himself a question. Can humans learn to be helpless, thus making their depression even worse? See, learned helplessness happened to me that day, talking to that police officer. I heard that bell ring, summoning me back to school. And the first thought in my mind was to get back in line. The first thought in my mind was to go back to school. The first thought in my mind was to sit down in the pain. How many of us in this room are sitting down in the pain? You need a coach. You need to hearken unto somebody who has a wider field of vision than you, somebody who has a deeper set of skills than you, somebody who can see that, darling, all you need to do is just tweak it 1 degree in that direction. Oh, look at you, you're flying. See, that police officer was my coach that day. He believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. And he has no idea to this very day that he saved at least one life that day. The police officer called me back in fewer than 2 minutes, and he said, I want you to go to the Bureau of Child Welfare. They're waiting for you. I said, sir, I can't. I live on Roosevelt Island. I can't get off the island. I don't have any money. He said, go to the administrative office at your school, borrow the money, get on that train, and go to the Bureau of Child Welfare. They are waiting for you. I told him that I would. And again, I hung up the phone. I went downstairs to my bedroom, and I found a little beach bag. It was maybe 10 or 12 inches square, maybe 3 or 4 inches deep. And I put some underwear and a couple of pairs of pants and a couple of shirts in the bag. And then I walked over to the stairs, and I paused for a minute because I knew that this was it, that if I did this thing, there was no going back. And oddly enough, I was reminded of a social studies lesson when Hernan Cortés landed on the shores of Mexico. The very first order he gave his men was to burn their ships in the harbor, because he understood at a cellular level that if they didn't have a place to retreat to, they were going to thrive or they were going to die. That was it. Those were their choices. So when you find yourself at the edge of your forest and you find yourself running back to your ship and you know you don't belong there, so you run back to the edge of your forest and fear punches you like a gut punch, and you stop and you go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. How do you end that then? How? I'll tell you how. You have to be willing to return to your ship. One more time. You have to be willing to return to your ship and light the flame of commitment to yourself, to your family, to your business, to your legacy, to your life. Return to your ship and light that flame of commitment and let that thing burn. Let it burn. So that's what I did. I took one final deep breath. And with the acrid smell of smoke in my nostrils, I walked up the stairs and out of my parents' house for the final time. I went to school and I borrowed the money. And I got on the little red cable car. You've probably seen it in the movies. It runs along the 59th Street Bridge. And it set me down in Manhattan, right next to Bloomingdale's. I got on the train by myself for the first time in my life, and I made my way to the Bureau of Child Welfare. You see, that's what you have to do. When the doctor tells you something you don't want to hear, you gotta make your way. When your spouse is acting a natural fool, again, raised your children right. You taught them right from wrong. And when they are acting like they were raised by wolverines, sometimes you just got to kiss them up to the universe and release them and make your way. So that's what I did. I made my way to the Bureau of Child Welfare. A social worker met me there, and she put me in Bellevue Hospital. The children's ward, not the psych ward, just for clarity. And she called my parents, and she said, "We have your daughter here, and she has made charges against you." And my parents, well, they said, "Keep her. We don't want her." So this whole situation took on a life of its own, and it rolled like a snowball down the hill. And 90 days later, I found myself sitting in a courtroom, basically suing my parents for divorce. As I sat in the witness box, I gazed past my father, the Harvard Law School educated attorney who represented himself in court that day. He cross-examined me. Don't worry, he had a fool for a client. I gazed past him at my sister, who was seated in the gallery behind my parents. My parents were at the defense table. And my sister was wearing a brand new pair of eyeglasses. My sister never wore eyeglasses, ever. In fact, when I walked into the courthouse that day, I walked up to my mother and I said, "Hi, where's Kim? Is she coming?" And my sister was sitting right there. She was sitting next to my mother. My sister and I shared a bedroom our entire lives, and in 90 days, I didn't recognize her. Those eyeglasses, more than anything else that happened that day, those eyeglasses told me that my ship had already burned in the harbor. Their lives had gone on without me. And from that moment, I had to take care of me. So I turned to the judge, and the judge was talking with my attorneys. They were talking back and forth. They were trying to decide what to do with me. And then I heard the word Pleasantville. Now, I'm sure it's a lovely place, but I had heard about it from the kids in the home. Pleasantville was, from my perspective, a warehouse in upstate New York for children. And I felt in my spirit that if I went to Pleasantville, all of my hopes and all of my dreams for my future would just dissipate like smoke. This panicked me, absolutely panicked me. And in that panic, this voice rose up in me I didn't know I had. This ability to advocate rose up in me that I did not know I had. And I turned to the judge and I just started talking. I said, "Please, sir, I don't want to go to Pleasantville. I want to stay in the city. I want to go to a competitive school because I want to go to college one day." And the judge turned and looked at me from on high, and he leaned back in his chair. I was reminded of De Niro. "Are you talking to me? Are you talking to me? Because I'm the judge." So he turned to my attorneys and he said, "Well, what kind of grades does she get?" And my attorneys, my advocates, who were helping the judge decide my future, had absolutely no idea what kind of grades I got. That is why I'm a CASA to this day, a court-appointed special advocate for abused and neglected children, because children's voices get lost in the system. So they went back and they checked my grades. He looked up, he sounded surprised. He said, "She gets A's and B's, sir." Some C's. Now, with my Harvard Law School educated father, you can imagine those B's, those C's, were a lot of contention in the household. I thought on the basis of those C's, he was going to turn me down flat and send me off packing to Pleasantville. But when he turned to look at me, there was respect in his eyes. He said, "Okay, I'll tell you what. I'm going to give you what you want. You can stay in the city, but you're going to have a disposition hearing in 18 months, and I want to see those grades. You keep your grades up, you hear me? I said, yes, sir, I swear I will. I promise I will. Well, that day, he found my parents guilty of neglect and put me in a group home at the corner of 82nd and West End Avenue, and I spent the balance of my childhood in foster care. Martin Seligman opened Learned Optimism by stating, each one of us is born with a word in our heart, and that word is either yes or no. It comes down to how you talk to yourself. It comes down to the conversation that goes on in your head when life happens to you and you have to decide. Are you going to decide yes or no? I'll leave you with this. The next time your chatterbox starts going, as soon as something happens to you, and it starts telling you you're not good enough, you're not strong enough, you can't do this, who's going to love you? Turn to your chatterbox. My chatterbox is right here. Turn to your chatterbox and say, thank you so much for that unsolicited advice. But that's a lie from the pit of hell, and I'm going in a different direction, and turn and walk away. Now, when your chatterbox follows calling you rude, you can say, well, clutch the pearls, baby. I learned it from you. Now, I suggest you shut it up before I shut it down and start to meditate or something. Folks, take your chatterbox on every single time, because that will create the habits in your life. That will create the attitudes in your life. That will create the situation that will absolutely, positively impact the entire trajectory of your life. Thank you very much.
You can stand. They were standing. Did you see that? You can stand. Oh, that's for you. I'm nervous. That's for you. Would you all mind if we had a chat on the Awesome Couch? Would that be okay? Oh, did you know it was called the Awesome Couch? I didn't know if I told you that. Yeah. Well, wait, why? It's Awesome Couch, not the Love Couch. Come on. Have a We're going to blend in, aren't we? Oh, my gosh. Are you still on? Yeah.
I am.
So, Shaune Arnold, ladies and gentlemen, are you excited that she came to town? Wow. So I have a question. How is it that you stay so strong? How do you get up every single day and help others? Because that's what your life is all about. It's helping others.
That's why I'm here.
That's why you're here. Tell us and expand on that. Why is that? Because you don't have to be, well, we don't have to be anywhere, but we are.
Right. I think we all make a choice of who we want to be and how we want to be. Happiness is a choice. You know, I was given a poster when I was in foster care by one of the teachers in one of the homes. And that poster said, happiness is found along the way, not at the end of the road. I took that poster with me from home to home to home to home to home. Every time I had to take it off the wall, I lost a little bit of the corners. Eventually, it was just down to nothing and I had to throw it away. But I have carried that in my heart all these years. Happiness is found along the way, not at the end of the road.
I absolutely love that. That's beautiful. And what do you do when you come across people who just want to be negative, and they just want to complain? Do you know anyone who does that?
I remove myself.
I mean, we have nobody like that in Southern California at all.
I hang around people like Les Brown. Anybody know who Les Brown is? Okay, you can't have a bad day and hang around Les Brown. Like, you're not allowed. That's the rule. So
who are your main mentors then? Les Brown, of course.
Les Brown, Eric Swanson.
Oh, fishing now.
Kaya Redford, who is a master NLP trainer. I just got back from Brazil teaching neuro-linguistic programming. So I have different mentors in my life for different reasons. There are some people, for example, that are just so loving that I'm around them for that reason. Because hanging around these people makes me more friendly. It rubs off.
Wow. So what's something that you want this audience to walk away from? If they could walk away with one item, one thing in their mind, one thing in their heart from you, from Shaune Arnold, what would that be?
That would be the ability to advocate for yourself in any situation in your life. So I have a gift for you.
Oh, no way.
I do.
Come on.
Okay.
You guys want a gift?
You want it?
Are y'all kind of noticing some of our speakers have some gifts for y'all? Are you noticing this? Raise your hand if you noticed that a little bit. Good, it's never going to happen again. But anyway.
This is a really awesome gift. When people get this, they call me back 2 and 3 times and tell me how much they love it. So I want you to go to my website, businessbootcamponline.com. One more time, businessbootcamponline.com. Hit the products link and find the art of negotiation. This is a $40 value.
Sorry for the pause. We're just doing this.
And so when you put in on the sales page, in the shopping cart, Habitude Warrior, one word, spelling counts, capitalization does not. You will get a free download. This is a 1-hour CD. I tell a bunch of funny stories. I tell you all about why you feel that sense of anxiety when you get into a negotiation and what to do about it and what to get, what you want from anyone.
That's amazing. I really appreciate that. How do they get that again, the website?
businessbootcamponline.com. Go to the products page and look for the art of negotiation. Use Habitude Warrior as the code, the coupon code, and that will make it a free item for you.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for doing that. Give it up for, yeah, and I always, as I start her presentation, introducing her, I always finish the same way. Can we finish the same way?
Absolutely.
All right, let's do this. Hold on. Who would like to have what we call a mandatory Hug Shaune Arnold 8 to 10 minute break right now? Would you guys like to do that? Raise your hand. Okay, great. We usually have, you guys can stand up right now if you'd like. Go ahead, stand up. You can go ahead and just do a little line over here or over here. Whoever wants to hug Shaune Arnold, come on up. We're going to take, let's kick some cool music, and we're going to take a 10-minute break. How many minutes? 10 minutes. Let's do it, guys. It's the Hug Shaune Arnold time, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go.